Hello students. So we are back with a new video. So I'm here to explain the further of the lesson Maggie cuts her hair. So in the previous video we just saw that she was in the mother's room and she was cutting out the hair, and she has already finished off cutting her hair now, and Kezia had entered to call her for the dinner downstairs. So after looking at Maggie, she was very eager to know what had happened, and she was very terribly, she was very much frightened and she was weeping like anything. So she shouted at once, "Don't, Kezia," said Maggie angrily. "Go away." So she does not want to enter Kezia. She don't want to disclose anything to Kezia now. So that's the reason she just shouted and not entered, not allowed Kezia inside her room. So Kezia is just telling you that that is Maggie. She's just conversing with. But I tell you, you are to come down, miss, this minute. Your mother says so, said Kezia, going up to Maggie and taking her by the hand to raise her from the floor. So she was about to just make her to stand up. You have to come down this minute itself, because her mom was calling out down for dinner. So this was told by Kezia. To whom it was said? It was said to Maggie. So Maggie is saying, "Get away, Kezia. I don't want any dinner," said Maggie. She was very afraid, weeping. She is terribly frightened. What would be the results of the further things? So she said she don't want anything. So, but Kezia did not leave her. "Pulling away her arm, just leave it. I shan't come. I cannot come with you. Please do leave it me in my situation. You just go away." Then what happened? "Oh well, I can't stay. I have got to wait at dinner," said Kezia, going out again. So she said that I can't stay here for a long time. I have to go and wait for the dinner in the dining hall downstairs. "Maggie, you little silly," said Tom. So now again Tom came to room, coming into the room 10 minutes after. So after 10 minutes he just came inside the mother's room where Maggie was in. "Why don't you come and have your dinner?" So he is just inviting her to have dinner. "There's lots of sweets, and mother says you are to come. What are you crying for, you little baby?" So Tom is saying this, and he invited her to dinner, and he also says that what all the dishes have been prepared for the dinner tonight. There's lots of sweets, and mother is already calling you for the dinner. And why are you crying now, you little baby? So this was the address addressed by Tom to Maggie. So, and then later, "Oh, it was dreadful." Tom was so hard and unconcerned. Yes, for a moment, we just saw that Tom was really unconcerned and he was not at all bothered about what Maggie is feeling now. But still now, he is not behaving that much of rude as where Maggie was thinking him to be there. So, and then later, so Tom was not altogether hard. So it was very dreadful. Tom was so hard and unconcerned. If he had been crying on the floor, Maggie would have cried too. And there was the dinner, so nice, and she was so hungry. It was very bitter. So it was very unconcerned thing where Maggie is experiencing with the Tom now. But Tom is not that much rude as what the others are, just seeing his from the outer surface. He is just back after 10 minutes and he invited to have dinner, and he is just trying to console, and he is just trying to tell that it would be so nice that she would have raised up from the floor and she would have come to have the dinner with him. So, and then later, but Tom was not altogether hard. He was not that much hard. He did not feel like crying. He did not feel like crying. But, and Maggie's sorrow did not spoil his enjoyment of the sweets he was looking forward to. So her mood did not spoil the mood of Tom enjoying the sweets. If Maggie was in the place of Tom, she would have wept. She would have wept along with the Tom. But here, Tom is not crying, but it is not seems that Tom is very rude enough. He do have some concern about Maggie because she is his sister. So that's the reason. And he cannot stop himself to avoid the sweets and enjoy the mood enough. But he went and put his head near her and said in low, comforting voice, won't you come then, Maggie? Shall I bring you a bit of pudding when I have had mine? So he just went near Maggie and asking her that shall I bring some a bit of pudding to you after my dinner is finished. Then what did Maggie do? Did these suits Maggie to come out of the situation? Let's see. So she says yes, said Maggie, beginning to feel a little more cheerful. So after hearing that unconcerned full words by Tom, she just got little more cheerful and she's trying to come out of the situation. Very well, said Tom, going away. But he turned again at the door and said, but you had better come. There's fruit, and nuts. And he also said, though he would be willing to bring up the pudding after his dinner, but he also said that there are lots of fruits and nuts on the table. So it was better to come to the dinner table. Will Maggie really agree to go there? So let's see. Maggie tears had ceased. Maggie tears has ceased and she began to think. Ceased, it's nothing but she has stopped crying. She began to think. As Tom left her, his good nature had taken away the worst of her suffering. So the good nature of Tom has consoled Maggie to get out of the situation, and the nuts and the pudding began to have their proper influence upon her, the fruits and the nuts and even the pudding. So these influential sweets and the dinner dishes had made her to console herself. Then slowly she rose. Rose is the past tense of raise. She just got up from the floor. She rose from among her scattered hair and slowly she made her way downstairs. So she made a will to go downstairs. Then she stood leaning with one shoulder against the frame of the dining room hall, that is dining room door. Then looking in through an opening, she saw Tom and Lucy with an empty chair between them. So Lucy and Tom is just waiting for Maggie in between them. So they have left the chair in the middle of them, and there were the sweets on the side of the table. It was too much. She entered quietly and went towards the empty chair, but no sooner. So she just was peeping out near the frame of the door, where that is the entrance of the dining room door, and she just saw the dining table where it was filled up with the sweets, the fruits, and the nuts. And she could not wait herself, and she wanted to go up there and sit in between Lucy and Tom and enjoy her dinner. But unfortunately, she could not do that. Why? Because she was very afraid of the situation, that of the sooner the result will be coming up to her. So moving on to the next page of the lesson, what happened next? But sooner had she sat down where she has sat down, and she felt sorry and wished herself back again upstairs. So she was just feeling up that she would have gone back upstairs, but somebody have seen her that she's under the table. She just don't want to miss out the dinner too, but she is not willing to show her face even. So that's the reason she was just down the table. She sat down and she was very feeling very sorry for herself, and she wished to go back to the room. Mrs. Tulliver's gave a little scream as she saw her. So she has seen, that is mother of Maggie had already seen, and she just gave a little scream and dropped the large spoon into the dish. She was serving up the dinner. She just dropped down the large spoon inside the dish itself, with serious results to the tablecloth. For Kezia had not told them why Maggie refused to come down, and Mrs. Tulliver had thought that it was nothing very unusual. So after seeing Maggie, she was very angry. Who was very angry? Mother of Maggie, that is Mrs. Tulliver. So she was very much angry and she dropped down the large spoon by which she was serving up the dinner. Inside the dish itself, she has just dropped down. And Kezia did not inform anybody that what is the reason that they have already Maggie had already refused to come down. And then later, Mrs. Tulliver had thought that it was nothing very unusual. So it was not very unusual, because one or the other thing will be done by Maggie. So this was a very common nature of Maggie. It was seen for their parents. So what she will do in the further? So let's see. Mrs. Tulliver's cry made all eyes turned towards the same point as her own, and Maggie's cheek and ears began to burn, while Uncle Gleig, a kind looking, white haired old gentleman, said, "What little girl is this? Why, I don't know her. Is it some little girl who have picked up on the road, Kezia?" So, Mrs. Tulliver's cry, we have to understand this little scream of Mrs. Tulliver had turned off all of their eyes to Maggie. Now, Maggie is very conscious that everybody is seeing her. Maggie's cheek and ears began to burn. So her cheeks and ears began to burn with full of fears. And later, while Uncle Gleek, one of her Uncle Gleek, who is a very kind looking, white haired and an old gentleman, he is asking out a question. Is that a little girl? Why? I don't know what is the reason that she look very miserably and very horrible, a kind of a funny look she has made herself. And he has he's just making out of fun of Maggie, that by saying, "Is she a little girl who have picked up on the road from the road, Kezia?" It was asked to Kezia. So in the next, "Why has gone and cut her hair herself?" said Mr. Tulliver in a low voice to Mr. Dean, laughing with much enjoyment. Some are just enjoying the moment. The parents of Maggie are really suffering and feeling very ashamed of what Maggie has done. "Why, little miss, you have made yourself look very funny," said Uncle Pullet. So Uncle Pullet is asking, "Why have you done your look? It's very funny to see her." And Uncle Gleeg again started as of, "For shame," said Aunt Gleek. Aunt Gleek is just telling out, "For shame," in her loudest and the severest tone of the voice. "Little girls who cut their own hair should be wiped and fed on bread and water, and not come and sit down with their aunts and uncles." So what she has told is, the girls who just cut off their hairs on their own, they would have just wiped out with the, and they would have fed with on the breads and water, that's all, and they would not be in a stage of sitting with their uncles and aunts. So and then, yes, said Uncle Gleeg. So Uncle Gleeg also just agreed what my Aunt Gleeg said already, meaning to make a joke out of his wife's cruel words. She must be sent to prison. So their opinion that she had to be sent to the prison, the jail, right? Then I think where they will cut the rest of her hairs off and make it all even, though it is very uneven to see. And when we are very sent to the jail, definitely they will make to look very even there. Then she is a naughty child and will break her mother's heart, said Mrs. Tulliver with tears in her eyes. So mother of Maggie is literally crying that they felt very embarrassed in front of her relatives. And she's a very naughty child and she often breaks the heart of her mother. So this was her own opinion shared with everybody by crying. So she had lots of tears in her eyes. Maggie seemed to be listening to all this quite calmly. So without being calm and without listening to their scolding, she did not have any choice at all. So that's the reason she was very quiet enough and she was just standing very quietly and listening to them. At first, she felt angry. So at first she felt very angry, like, who are they to speak about me? And this made her brave enough to bear their laughter for a time. So this was one of a kind of a laughter time for everybody, and she would be the center of attraction, but not in a kind of good sense, but making fun out of her. And then Tom thought she was helped by the appearance of putting to bear everything. And after a while, Tom thought that the influence of pudding is already made its work, and because of that itself, she had come down. So, if she would have not come down, what would be the other result? So, this was the real concern of the Tom, who was being a big brother of Maggie, and he was thinking about the safety of his sister. So, and then later, he whispered, "Oh, Maggie, I told you you would catch it. So you will be, I mean, this action will be known for everybody." He meant to be very friendly. He was not speaking harshly, but very friendly itself. He was just telling out that to Maggie, "I told you and I have warned you that a time being you will be safer, but later on you will be caught." And then, but Maggie thought he too was laughing at her. So Maggie just misunderstood Tom that he is also making fun out of her. But no, in reality, he was just morally supporting her. Her poor powers of endurance broke down, and getting up her from her chair, she ran to her father. So she just broke down with lots of humiliations by her aunts and uncles, and even a shout of mom, that is Mrs. Trulliver, had made her to cry and be afraid so much. And because of embarrassment and endurance, and she could not bear that suffering, she could not bear that pain. So she just ran to father, hid her face on his shoulder. So she suddenly went to father and hugged over him. And she is now, what she is doing, she is just in a loud weep. She is just crying very loudly by holding her father. So the last page of the lesson, it goes like this. We have come to the conclusion part of the lesson now. As we all can see in the picture, that everybody are having their dinner and Maggie is holding her father, and she is weeping out very loudly, weeping, crying. "Come, come, my child," said her father gently, putting his arm around her. So when very gently her father called to him, and she just went and hugged, and he has also put his arm around her. And never mind, he's trying to console. "Never mind, you are in the right to cut it off. if it troubled you, stop crying. Father will take you your part. So father will be, I will be with you, and I will take your side. And don't cry. Stop crying right now. And whichever or whatever it is giving a trouble to you, you have all rights to cut it off. So that is the hair which was giving out a lots of trouble and which was annoying her. So father supported her action. So with the delightful of father and the consoling words of father, uh, Maggie tried to stop weeping, and a kind of calmness she just cultivated. And delightful words of tenderness, Maggie never forgot any of those moments when her father took her part. Nobody was supporting her, though partially Tom was supporting her, but she did not come across Tom's concern. But father took concern of her very directly by hug and a arm around her. And then later, in her future, when she was growing up, whenever the situation had come over that how her father supported, so she used to remember this situation where father took her side. She kept them in her heart and thought of them long years after, when everyone said that her father had done very ill by his children. So whenever somebody, the aunts and the uncles, spoke badly about father, she remembered all the good deeds done by father to her. So by this, what we understand is, do not take any decisions in any urgency. So that is what we have, that is the moral we have to learn from this lesson. Whatever the decisions had to be taken, we have to think what would be the further things happening, what would be the future thing will be happening because of our action. So that is what the moral we learn here. Though Maggie had created a fun, making a fun out of her, but soon after that, we also saw that she was very regretting herself that she would have not done it. But here, father is the one who made her very strong enough. So the moral support has to be given for everybody. But what we learn is, whatever the actions we will be conducting and we will be doing it, think twice before we do. So this is up to the lesson. Maggie cuts her hair. Hope you all liked it. And please read out the lesson from the first page, and then we'll be meeting up in the next video of the next lesson with a new chapter. Happy learning.